All right, we will go ahead and get this show on the road. I think most everyone came back. Some of us on computers now. Hi, Sal. Okay, so out of my people who are on the computer, who is willing to read through a couple of scripts with me, or willing and able? Anybody? Sal's moving. Sharon maybe isn't back yet. And the rest of you haven't talked yet today, so I don't know if you're actually there.
When I get settled, I'm more than happy to. Sorry.
Oh no, you're totally fine. I'm glad you're there.
Sharon.
Oh, hi Sharon. I was just asking if anyone online would be willing to help read through some scripts. I'm not going to send you off into rooms. I just want to read through some of them.
The script?
Yep.
Do I have to be able to see the script?
Do you have it? Do you have a copy or no?
Well, I do, but it's hard to have both your screen and my downloaded script on my computer at the same time.
Gotcha.
But I could role play with you if you want to just do that.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we are on page 13 in the script book. And
Script book?
yep.
No, wait a minute.
Oh.
We only have 12 pages in there. Thank you.
Uh-oh.
See, why is mine different?
There's two of them.
There's a lot more pages than 13. There's like 26.
I thought I changed reading.
They're still inside.
Scripts. It was inside.
Okay, I'm
Mine
snoozing
are
yours.
different.
That's okay.
The buyer's one.
You've got them. Yep.
The buyer's one.
Yeah. So why is my pages, I'm in 41. What's the name of it?
It's called Scripts for Working with Buyers.
What the hell are you saying?
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to read through them. Hi, Mara. We're going to just read through them. I'm not going to make you go off and practice them on your own today, but I want to go through, and then after each one, I want to hear one nugget out of there that you would steal and use in your daily talk. So I want to try to take them and just grab the idea of making it a guided conversation. So we're going to read them as written, and then I want to hear one person tell me one thing, or multiple persons tell me one thing, something that they hear that's like, that's helpful. I could use that. I could use that. Oh, okay. Right. So you have who has them?
I mean,
You have them.
no,
I have a copy
you gotta do
too,
it.
so we can share.
We'll get there.
We'll figure it out. Okay. So I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Linda.
Linda, you need labels.
Every time it's Linda, listen.
Oh, God.
Sorry. All the time, I know. So
That's right. My next door neighbor is Karen. So
Yeah.
Oh,
We talked about
okay.
that yesterday.
I'm like, I'm so sorry. That's your name. Also, you are a little bit of one.
Oh,
She's very nice. Okay. So I'm gonna call Linda. Linda, ring, 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 ring.
Hello.
Hi. Is this Linda with Keller Williams?
Yes. Wait, where are we?
Or should we read the first one?
No.
First number on 13. I'm making there's no buyer called on a property.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could tell me anything about 123 Maple Street. I just drove by it and I was wondering. I kind of liked it.
Yes, absolutely. Before we start, may I get your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Corey.
Okay, Corey, hi, nice to meet you. So it sounds like you're interested in 123 Maple Street. So we do have it listed at 249,000.
Totally not in Colorado, but okay.
It is a steal for sure. I would love to schedule an appointment for you to come and take a look at the property. Are you interested in meeting up tomorrow?
So I will tell you what this says, and I will tell you how I spin it. It says, would you like to meet at 4 p.m. or Saturday at 10 a.m.? that's really specific for
That's
your
so
average stranger.
fast, too.
Here's how I will lead into that conversation. And there's a couple of things. You don't want to give the reason they ask that is you don't want to tell a buyer, a first time person you've never talked to, and you will get these sign calls. If you have listings, you will get these sign calls. You don't want to tell them that you have nothing else to do. That's not a good look. You also don't want to tell them that you're too busy to see them. That's not a good look either. So how I will lead into it is I would love to take you out there. Are weekdays or weekends better for you? Or are evenings or daytime better for you? And so I will start with 2 broad choices, and then I will narrow it down to a couple of more choices. Because that way I'm not committing, saying Tuesday at 2, I will make that happen. I'm gonna drop everything and come see you. But also it's not, these are the only 2 times I have in the next 7 days available. Like that reads like I'm too busy to help you. So, so there's a reason that they put that in there, and you can tweak it to make it feel a little more natural. If they want to go today, which you will also get, especially if it's your listing and they're calling, then you might do, I can do this time or this time. And I'm not shy. 1 day, 2 times, if that's all I'm available, that's perfectly acceptable.
So what would you share for information for that property? So if someone's calling you and.
Well, let's just touch really quick. Let's just go through the rest of it because that will sort of answer a little bit of that question. Well, Saturday at 10 is better for me.
Perfect. Well, let's meet at my office. So while we're out, you can also review other properties on the multiple listing service that you might be interested in. If Maple Street isn't right for you, does that work for you?
Okay. There are 10 reasons that is a good piece of that stirrups. Number 1, meeting strangers at vacant houses, historically not awesome. They're not going to tell you should never do it, but you should never do it alone. And you should be really careful. So if you meet them at an office, number 1, it gives you an opportunity to meet them before you're in if it's not the office, coffee shop, you can come up with something. And it will give you a couple of other things. There are a lot of other questions I want to know before I'm divulging a ton of information. Let's assume because right now, most of what's in the listing, they should have easy access. If someone calls and they sound 80, they literally might have driven by it and know nothing else. Other than that, like, these people have read your listing. You do not need to recite it to them. And if they haven't, may not want them as clients anyway, you need to find out if they have an agent. You will get phone calls from these people, from random people whose agent is just too busy, and so they think you should show it to them instead. If you don't ask, you will, I don't know, drive from Golden to Brighton and waste 2 hours of your life only to find out that they're represented. Not that that's happened to me personally. So ask if they do have an agent and they say they're just too busy. I would say, would you have your agent reach out for me? We'll see what we can work out. It's not your job. If they have an agent, you need to be talking to that agent. Or who is your agent? I'll give you, what's their information? I'll give them a call and we'll see if we can. There are a handful of things, but I mean, you guys know, if I'm a buyer's agent and I can't show, I'm calling a showing agent, not the listing agent, unless I have exhausted every other option. So not a creep. And then it gives you an opportunity to build a relationship. I know what they're actually looking like. What are the odds that the random person who called you is going to be the buyer for that house?
Not very good.
Not very good. So try very hard to meet them at a third place. Okay. Let's see. Jamie, I want you to call me. Someone told you that I might be buying a house.
Okay.
I'm thinking about buying a house. Okay.
Okay. Ring, ring.
Hello?
Hi, is this Corey?
This is she.
Hi, Corey. My name is Jamie Dayton, and I got your name from Sherry, a mutual friend of ours, and she told me that you might be interested in buying a home.
Oh, yeah, we are starting to look at that. Our lease is up here in a little while, and yeah, we're thinking about it.
I'd like to invite you to come into my office so that we can discuss what you're looking for in your next home and use my MLS to review properties. This way we can search for homes that fit your criteria.
Oh, well, okay, sure, okay.
Is that something that works for you? We could schedule a time?
Yeah, I think that would be great, actually.
Okay, so when we meet at my office, we can work together to make the most of your time. And I can use the tools I have to find the best matches for you and check for consistencies and other details that would not be apparent from a property visit alone. Are weekends or weekdays better for you?
It's an awkward script.
Yeah.
That's
Very
weird.
Okay, what would you change when you,
A lot.
I would definitely.
Well, she didn't say who she
warm it
worked
up.
for, kind of.
I was just.
yeah, there's a lot missing in that
Yeah.
particular script.
Like, our friend Sherry, our mutual friend Sherry told me it would be okay to call you. Is this a good time?
Sure.
There's a lot that you could.
Is this
put in
a
there
good
to make you
time?
Feel more comfortable.
Tell me-
What's your time frame?
Tell me a little bit about that,
Yeah.
and then close your mouth.
Right. Yeah, she just was assuming that you were looking to buy right now.
And you want to meet with me to look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. However, if we're going to glean something out of it, the point is again to set up a time to meet in person,
Right.
preferably, and especially for a buyer in in an office, in a coffee shop, in a whatever. But yeah, just touching base and building the relationship. Most important one for that one is closed mouth, open ears. All right, let's see. And since we didn't quite finish this on the other one, we're gonna skip down to page 14. And we're just going to do,
I have a question.
yeah,
Going back a little bit to, let's see if I can remember my question. You
uh-oh.
said, if you're
Sharon, you cut out in seconds, try again.
if you're working for the buyer or you want to get the buyer to hire you, you said you would not use a listing agent to show the home if you're unavailable. You would use a showing agent. Is that correct? And I
Yeah, you have-
apologize. I'm new to all this completely.
No,
So
that's
you
okay.
said you know why you would do that, and I honestly don't know why you would do that.
Okay, so here's the deal. In my opinion, if it is my buyer, getting that buyer in the house is my job. There are a lot of lazy agents out there. You will get a phone call of someone who's works this on the side, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to have a plan for showing properties. The cool thing, one of the best things about our office is in this coaching program is that if you have a buyer who absolutely has to get in and see a property, I guarantee there is someone in this office who is willing and able to go show it for them. And you probably should offer to pay them some anywhere from, let's say, $30 to $50 a door, depending on where it is and if it's 1 or 4 or whatever. Like try to make it worth their time. But there are, if you have someone who absolutely, I was at it. Greg and I were both in Mexico, so fortunately I had a buyer taking a break anyway, so I didn't have to show it. But I have a list of 5 or 6 or 7 agents that I will call, say, hey, can you show such and such property for me? Now, the truth is not everyone has that. And if I have an agent call me, I had one of my favorite agents I worked across the table with called me one time. I'd never met her. And she said, it was Labor Day weekend. And she says, I'm so sorry. I'm out of town. I have a buyer who has fallen in love with your property. He's very serious. He's very well qualified. And I just have no way of showing it to him. Would you be willing to meet him there? And she was incredibly kind and incredibly gracious. I went and I met him, and that ended up being our buyer. I'm happy to do that. But if you're getting cold calls from a person who claims to be represented, before I'm meeting that person there, I'm having a conversation with that agent. A lot of times they may not even know that they're making that phone call. And so they need to have that conversation with their buyer. And if they do know that they're making that phone call, I'm going to very tactfully tell them that that's not okay. That's not acceptable. So just ask if you get a signed call. Do you have an agent that you're working with or that you have signed agreement with is actually a better way to phrase that. So they don't have a signed agreement, maybe you end up, I mean, I'm not a proponent of stealing clients, but if they're out there trying to schedule their own showings, they might need a new agent. Okay. Okay. Asking for business. So we talked a little bit about closing at the end of it last time. So we're just gonna read through a couple. And I like this first one. I want to touch on it because in a variety of ways it works well for me. And we've already established that I'm not the pushiest person in the world. And so we just ran through all of the things that I do. And we're going to talk about all the things that we do in our buyer's agreement or in our buyer's presentation in a minute. And at the end, something as simple as all I ask for in exchange for what I do, this says for my superior customer service promise, or all I ask in exchange for blah, 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 is that you agree to work with me exclusively. Does that sound fair? Does that sound fair? People do not, it's very, think about it. No, that sounds reasonable. And I use that in a handful of places. And when I'm asking for an agreement, that's one of them. I tell my buyers and my sellers, I'm going to pour a lot into you and I'm going to pour a lot into this deal. And I'll actually tell them, if you want to fire me, I will go away. I've never been fired. I can't imagine this is going to be my first time. No one's ever fired me. However, if for some reason we find out we're not a good fit, all I ask is that you give me notice and we talk about it. And then we walk away and not just, and so this is what this agreement does, and ask for the signature to close the deal. Does anyone have a hard time or have a, we don't call it a drunk monkey anymore. What do we call it now? little birdie on their shoulder that whispers negative things that makes it hard to ask for the close?
I'm not sure.
I know, I certainly
He
do.
asks for crackers all the time too. I don't know what's going on.
It can be a hard thing, but it's also one of the most important pieces. Okay. Well, that was 20 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and jump on into the rest of it now. Nope, not that one. Buyer. All right. Making buyer presentations and getting listings. This looks different from what we went over earlier, but it is equally important. And I would say that it's actually in some ways even more important because a buyer, an unsigned buyer, will waste more of your time than your children. And that is saying something coming from someone who has 2 teenage boys. You need to know, this is where you will set yourself up for success in multiple ways. You want to try buyers. What was her name? She was sitting here. Maria. She's like, I don't like buyers anymore.
Yeah.
I only want to work with sellers. Why did you say that?
It's because, let's see, they don't listen to me.
Because they don't listen, which results in?
They don't get what they want. They don't get the offer. We're not winning any of the offers right now.
So you're doing a lot.
All this legwork and with no, what's the saying? Yeah.
You're doing all the work and no paychecks.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm in a Facebook group. It's a subscription that I have that also has a Facebook group. And I about fell out of my chair yesterday. She had posted a picture of this guy who's spinning around and around and around on the wheel. And she's like, this is how I feel. I've written 100 offers this year and not gotten a single thing under contract. Y'all, I know this market is tough, but it ain't that tough. That woman is doing something wrong. She's doing a lot of something's wrong. If you will write offers in this market and not get them under contract. If you've written 100 this year, we need to do so. That's not the market's fault. That's your fault. And so this presentation, this conversation is how you're going to set the tone for how this buyer is going to work. It is not perfect. Not everyone will listen. However, if you set your standards from the beginning, and you set expectations from the beginning, it will change how it goes for the period of time that you work with them. And a buyer with bad expectations in this market will suck you dry. And really, a buyer in any market that with bad expectations will suck you dry, but especially in one like this. Okay.
Hi, who are you looking for?
It's Andrea Kwame.
You know what?
Down the hall.
Yeah, go straight through. There's a meeting going on there. Is she, or is she?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm
No,
catching the whole meeting.
You're
right-
good.
No, I'll just kind of go in this way because.
Meetings
I'm
everywhere. Okay, so we've already talked a little bit about this, but why is it important to get a buyer representation agreement signed before working with a buyer?
Because then they can go in and, do right with somebody else. You did all the legwork and then they just go and pay somebody else for it.
They went to an open house and a assertive listing agent just snatched them up. We need to close those doors, sorry. Hold on one second, we're gonna close the doors. I think the meeting. Why else?
They could, then you can coach them on things that, you know, if ever they do need to go to an open house on their own, or, you know, even if they're going with a showing agent, you can coach them on, you know, what things to avoid saying and sharing with to other agents and stuff.
Yep. Okay. So step one, set the appointment. I'm guessing we've seen this before, this little funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Every
Tattooed
day.
on my brain.
Okay, what are the goals of a buyer's consultation appointment? Let's list off some goals that we might have.
Sharing your value proposition.
Value proposition, just like sellers, absolutely.
Answering questions,
Answering questions, absolutely.
what their
Setting it.
expectations are.
Uh-huh.
Setting expectations is huge just on the buyer side right now.
I guess maybe a price point.
Sure,
Yeah,
finding
yeah.
out their needs,
Mhm.
absolutely. Finding out their needs and their point in financing plan, right? Where are they? Have they decided they can afford a $500,000 house, or have they talked to a lender about that $500,000 house? And then,
Qualifying, essentially. qualifying.
and ultimately getting a signed representation agreement, right? Okay. Since you've seen that 30 times, we're not gonna spend too much time there. Okay. I am very upfront with my buyers, even more so with my buyers than my sellers, that there will be an exclusive agreement signed. I am not shy about it. I am not, and there's a lot of different ways to get here. And one of the easiest ways for me is to explain. I will go through the definitions of working relationships, right? And so I will tell you, in the state of Colorado, there are a couple of different ways that I can work with a buyer. The first is as a customer, which basically means it's just my job. It's my job to make sure that we follow the laws. But I don't have any of the confidentiality. I don't have any of the anything too crazy. I get to be a referee, not a coach. I can be a transaction broker, which basically means I said the only time I ever work with this is if I've got two parties that I have a relationship with, and we're going to come together, and I'm going to be referee. Or I can be your agent. Barring a very short list of options, because it is not in my nature to work with someone and not coach them through a process and help them get their very best results. It's just not within my nature to not work as an agent. Therefore, barring a very pressing reason to work in some other, like I have two clients on the same deal, this is how I work. And in order for me to work like this, I have to have this agreement. And this basically says that you're going to work exclusively with me, and I'm required to do all of these things. Okay, and you can go through the contract, you can go through what you went through real estate school, all the things that an agent does. I make significant confidentiality. It is my job to work in your best interest and your best interest alone, not my best interest, not seller's best interest, yours. But to do that, I have to have this agreement signed. Charles is spying on us.
Charles.
All right.
I hope.
All right, preparing the buyer presentation. Once again, you can go through into commands and you can do this. Does anyone here need us to go back into command and see where the buyer presentations are? Anybody?
No.
Anybody? Okay.
They're in the same place.
They are in the same place. But it's important to know, and there's not a lot of places you can go find something like that and edit it to the level that we can in these. I was really excited when they came in. Let's see here. Okay, what resources do you have to help prepare a buyer presentation?
Command.
Command, of course. What else?
Other agents.
Chris Voorhees.
Sure. What other tools might you need to make a really good buyer's presentation?
Money to print it.
Also, yes. What if I don't print it though? I mean, it doesn't even have, what do I need if
RE Colorado. or-
yes, 100%, RE Colorado. I would say RE Colorado is a big one when you're talking about expectations. You are going to want to be able to demonstrate to them why you're telling them what you're telling them. Because if you do not demonstrate why you need to go in with the expectation that this home is going to sell for 10% over, and if it sells for less, you should be considered a win. There are people out there who believe that we make too much money and that the higher the sale price, the more money that we get, and they do not understand that there's some $10,000 in price. Not a big deal on our check. But there will be people who think who you will argue with. So make sure that you are ready to back up your numbers when you're setting these expectations. Let's see. Okay. All right, so we're just going to kind of go through here. So their dream home. So the first thing you want to know is, what are they looking for? Right? What, if you could have everything you wanted, what does that look like? And you might be careful. If you know that you only have a $300,000 buyer, you might not ask them to describe their dream home. That's going to be a little rough. But if you, so know your audience a little bit, but if at the very least you want to find, what are your non-negotiables? Do you have a family with 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, and anything smaller than a 3-bedroom is off the table, regardless of the fact that they have $275,000 to spend? You need to know that, and you need to have a conversation about reality. Not that they can't do it. It has been, I did it this year, but they need to know what they should be expecting. They shouldn't be expecting, probably not single family homes, right? Do they are dogs their children and they absolutely must have a fenced in yard, or do they have 4 dogs and anything with an HOA is going to be a problem? Do they have an RV and anything that doesn't have RV parking is completely out of the question? What are your non-negotiables that you absolutely have to have? What is your budget? What else might we want to have? What else might we want to know?
What neighborhood, what area?
What area? And how flexible is that?
And conversely, are there any areas you just will not go?
Mm-hmm. Especially if it's not your backyard, right? So one time I had a buyer and he's like, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I won't go, he said, I won't go east of Kipling. I won't go south of 58. I won't go north of, I don't remember, it was very specific.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and I will tell you, I live in Arvada, and what he said, cool, I get it,
Yeah, you know.
right? Like I know these neighborhoods and I know why, and his budget supported where he wanted to be. And so we set up a very specific search. Is there a very specific school district that you,
Yeah,
or are there multiple, or is there one that you want to avoid?
yeah.
What else? Location.
Era of house. Some people are
Sure,
super
style.
flexible and other people are like, it has to be contemporary, or I hate cookie cutter, it has to have some,
Flair.
old fashioned flair.
Open concept.
Or I hate the 70s, which is,
What's your tolerance for projects once you buy it,
yeah,
right?
does it
Like,
need to be turnkey? Yeah.
can you put up with some paint and carpet? Can you put up with a kitchen that needs remodels? Can you make it work until you remodel that, until you finish the basement? What do you need and what can you tolerate until you get it there? All right. And it says right here, a really important question, not only but what, but why. The why question will help you determine the difference between things they really want and things they really need. And you may need to have a conversation about the difference as you go through. Matt Harper standing right here, he tells his buyers you can have big, nice, or cheap. Choose two. Right? So if you want, what's more important? A lot of square footage or beautifully remodeled? Now, if they have enough of a budget, maybe they can have everything they want. But I'm telling you that even people with $1 million budgets usually want more than their money will go for.
Yeah.
And while big may be a relative term, they will still at some point choose between additional square footage and beautifully remodeled. Unless they have an unlimited budget. All right, so let's see. Okay, establishing standards. Okay, so you might consider building something like this, taking something like this, or building your own, or looking through some other templates. I think there's one in your user guide, but I'm not going to pull it out to look. And it's going to be some sort of a questionnaire. Okay. What do they need from you? And you're going to find out things like how far along are they on the process of their home loan. And I'm going to tell you that if they're done and qualified, your next question is with whom and can I have their contact info? And if you are unfamiliar with that person, and certainly if you're unfamiliar with that company, you are A, going to call and have a conversation with that person, and B, encourage them, especially if they've only had one conversation. This is a really personal process, and who you work with your loan matters just as much as who you work with on me, with as a real estate agent. You might consider having at least one more conversation with another lender. Here are 3 I recommend. You do not want to get 2 weeks out from closing with American Financing to find out that they overlooked a $7,000 debt.
Are you saying that's happened to you?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they can't close on their loan without some major creativity. That's a long story. I won't tell it about you, but you want to know who they're working with as a lender.
I've been really surprised too at how closely I've been working with lenders. Like anytime you put in a bid, you're telling the lender what it is,
Yeah.
getting a specific letter, having the lender contact the
Yep.
seller's agent. So
And I will tell you, my buyers do not always use my preferred lender. And most of the time it has worked out fine and they're lovely. And sometimes those lenders will go above and beyond to try to earn your business in the future. And sometimes they're terrible. And there's just a couple of things that you need to just be aware of. And if they have someone that's, you feel like I'm not familiar with that, ask around the office. So, and you might get either some ammunition as to tell them why they might reconsider. You might get some reassurances that it's completely fine, or you might get some things to tell them to be aware of. So for example, I happen to know that Wells Fargo right now on an easy loan is very likely to do a desktop appraisal, which means that they're not actually going to go out there. If they're putting a decent amount down, they might actually go out there. And as hard as appraisals are right now, if you have a high-end property, that could be challenging. You may want them to go out there and they won't. That could result in a low appraisal. I know a client insists on using them because their fees were lower. And in the end, they ended up, all of the fees that were lowered and then some, because of a low appraisal, they ended up spending their entire appraisal gap coverage. So you just, are you qualified, with whom, and they need to have a conversation with that lender. Ultimately, it's their responsibility. It is their choice. You're going to be respectful of it. But it is part of, if they have a really, truly bad experience and you didn't invite them to talk with anybody else, it's your fault. Okay? And you guys are lucky enough to have some really great lending resources at your fingertips. Okay. Have you thought about the price range you'd be comfortable with? So this is not just what can you afford, it's what can you comfortably pay in a payment. And so a lot of people do not know the difference between what their lender will approve them for and what they can afford monthly. So make sure they're having those conversations as well. If I found a home today that checked all your boxes, could you see yourself making a move sooner rather than later? So if I find your perfect house, are you ready to jump? Because if not, we might go see a few houses just to get an idea, especially if you have someone who's totally clueless. You shouldn't be going out showing 10 houses every Saturday to someone who's not ready to jump. Okay. Your wish list. We've already talked a little bit about that. This is a good way to do it though. Let's list adults, children, and pets that will inhabit the space. We need to know who we're shopping for. What are the non-negotiables? If you had to name your top 5 non-negotiables, what do you do with someone who's got 10 non-negotiables? Convince them they're not all non-negotiable.
Yeah.
There you will have those people. So make them prioritize, even if they think they're all non-negotiable, make them prioritize. Do you have a preference for the year the house is built? Do you want to move in condition? Are you willing to do some work? When people visit your home, what do you want it to say about you? Are there any specific features? Do you need any accessibility options? I can't, at least 3 times, I can think of buyers that I've taken shopping and 7 houses into showings, they say, yeah, but my dad couldn't get out to the backyard here. Wait, what? Dad doesn't live with you? Dad's in a wheelchair. Dad's gonna come for barbecues. They envision themselves bringing their parents over regularly, and there were steps to get into the yard. I didn't know that was on the list. So just ask those questions. Is there anything else on this list that anyone wants to throw in and add that might be an important question to know up front? Sure. How about, do you have strong opinions about stairs? People who want a lot of square footage and like ranches, you can gently remind them that you can get more square footage for your money with a 2-story usually, because the footprint's smaller. You never know. Things to ask. Okay. Neighborhood insights. These are all in command. They're a little messy with buyers, not as useful as they are with sellers, in my opinion. Okay. How home buying a home works. You're going to want to walk through this process with them, especially if they're first-time home buyers. I will say, before we go too far into this, one of the things you should have asked by now and found out is whether or not they've done this before and how recently. If you have someone who has bought and sold 4 or 5 houses, They're going to feel insulted if you walk through all of these things with them. If they're a first-time home buyer, this probably isn't enough information, but if you give them much more, they're gonna have a panic attack. So just kind of know a little bit your person. And if it's someone who's experienced, you could probably just hand this off and they're gonna kind of know. But their jobs are primarily to partner with an agent, you. You're gonna set up an MLS. This is the things we're gonna do. You're gonna get pre-approved for a loan. And then you're going to go house shopping, not the other way around. And make sure that, and when you have someone who really wants to go shopping, just tell them there is nothing worse than falling in love with a home and finding out you cannot afford it. It's horrible, truly. I've seen it happen to people. I've made that mistake, and I have just promised myself that I won't let people do that. And it could be with interest rates as low as they are, you may be able to afford a lot more home than you think. It is worth taking. Your basic pre-approval can be done over the phone in 30 minutes and at least have a ballpark of where they're at. So insist, this is important. And then I want you to just set the standard that they're gonna do a little bit of the homework on their own. If you have someone with a really healthy budget for what they want, and that might be $300,000. If you have a $300,000 who needs a condo with 1 or 2 bedrooms, they're still gonna have a fair amount of options. But encourage them to go drive at least areas, especially if they're new to the area and they're not giving you west of Kipling, north of 88, 58, etc. Make sure that, encourage them to go check out the area so that you don't end up driving into a neighborhood and they're like, nope, and you pulled into the driveway and you haven't even been into the house. Try to protect your time that way. And just reminding them that I'm gonna make you a priority and you're not my only client. So anything you can do to sort of drive by and see before we do is really helpful. And that scheduling home tours for the most part should be done through you. Can they go to open houses?
Yes, but they need to tell anybody they talk to that they already have a representative.
Sure. I'll give if I have a buyer who wants to go to open houses, sometimes I'll just give them a stack of business cards. Go check them out. Just walk in and hand them my card, tell them you're working with me. They'll leave you alone. You can check out the house. And if we have any questions, they're welcome to reach out. Simple as that. I saw someone, read an idea somewhere, someone actually made cards that were like an open house pass. Like that's what they called them on the back. It was specifically for that. I thought it was kind of cute. If you have any questions or you think we need to discuss my client, please feel free to give me a call. And anyway, I thought it was cute. I don't think I'll do it, but it was cute. And then we're going to make our offer and negotiate the terms and all of it, so you can run through a little bit of what it looks like. One of the things you might want to cover is inspections, especially right now. Well, we'll come back to that. Affiliated business arrangement disclosure. We don't do, well, we do those if you do Keller Mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
All right, okay, let me check make sure I'm not missing anything important. Hold on 1 second. Here we go, these sites. Works. Okay. So this page, your value proposition. What happens if you're a brand new agent and you don't have 15 years in business, 268 clients served, and 61 repeat clients, and writing zero across the board?
Coachella.
Sounds like a bad plan. What are your options? Zero.
Talk about, and talk about being part of Keller Williams' system and web of influence.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you, and I would, you can rely on A, the stats of your office, or you can rely B on the stats of your coaching team. I will tell you, the coaching team in this office has enough clout, and really and truly, and I'm sure the Foothills office. Do we have anyone on the Foothills office still on this call this time?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
No, not Sal, not Laura, I think Sharon's here with us.
Sharon, are you in this office?
Yeah.
Are you in Avenue's office? Yes, okay. This is me speaking, this is important. If you don't hear anything else I say today, hear this. When people hire you, they are not just hiring a brand new agent who's never done anything. They are hiring Margaret and this coaching staff. So do not feel ever like if just because your numbers here are 0 or single digits, that you don't have anything to offer in your value proposition, because it is just flat false. If you would say it about Margaret, you should say it about yourself, because you get the benefit of all of that expertise. And you should claim it with pride. And it is okay to say, I've been several years in this business, and one of my value propositions is that I'm never done learning. I always have someone that I look up to. I always have someone who's coaching me. And if I ever hit a situation that I've not seen before, I know where to get the answer. And so when I lead with that, it's never a big deal for me to say, I just want to double check something real quick. Can I get back to you on that? Okay. Nobody cares. And a lot of people will respect you for it. So don't worry about these. If you want to put these stats in, do it. And you can ask Margaret. We'll have Margaret or Stacey will give you the coaching numbers. There's plenty of numbers to get the office numbers. There are options here. You can go through these or not, but I always include them because I love them. They are near and dear to my heart. This is how we do business. This is how we do business in Keller Williams. And these are the things that you can expect from me. Okay? Oh, let's see here. Okay, conduct the buyer consultation. Does anyone feel like they have a hard time setting up a buyer consultation instead of just taking people shopping? Yeah? Yeah. It's very tempting for someone to say, I want to go look at houses, and think you'll just do a buyer consultation while you show houses. And if I get a sign call off of my listing and they want to go look, I have a 1-day 3 showing rule personally. I will meet you and I will show you up to 3 houses before I have a listing agreement, because I think it's fair for you to have a chance to get to know me. That's me. I know a lot of people who will do 0, and there is value there. But at some point, you're going to want to sit down and have a conversation about what they want and don't want. If you are trying to learn these things while you show houses, you are going to waste a lot of time. It will take you, if you sit down, you can have a 30-minute conversation and have all of these things knocked out. You will look professional. You will set standards. And if you try to do this while you're showing houses, it will take you 20 houses to find out the same information. And you'll miss something. So it is worth the time just to tell the buyer, you're a busy person. I'm a busy person. I have found in my experience that we can save each other a lot of time and heartache if we sit down for 30 minutes and just go through a few basics before we get started. And then really in 30 minutes, you'll have all the answers to these questions. Okay. Sure I don't miss anything on Margaret's list. Okay. Okay, same thing as seller presentation. I would encourage you to have something in print for them to take home with them. I would encourage you not to have it 20 pages. I would encourage you to have it a few pages that cover the highlights, something that they can follow along. It should include your top 3 lenders' information. If you're brand new, 2 of those people could probably be Mitch and Keller Mortgage. If you need a 3rd, you can ask me. I have a gal that is she's my absolute favorite, near and dear to my heart. I know Margaret's got a 3rd that she adores, and it won't take you long. But I would encourage you to have something printed out. Okay, let's see here. We already did that script practice. Buyer recommendation agreement. Okay. Buyer representation agreement is a legal document that formalizes your working relationship. If we end up, this one seems shorter. I may go through the buyer agreement at the end just really quickly, not in so much how to fill it out, but in how I go through it with a client. It can be helpful. Setting up your guide. I feel like we're gonna be done really fast. This is shorter. So that's what we'll do. Okay, so closing the deal. We've already talked a little bit about why it is important to have your agreement in place. And if we really get into a pinch and I have someone who doesn't want to sign, you can even write it in a cancellation notice. Really what I tell them is, look, you can fire me at any time. All I ask is that you tell me, and we'll rip this up. And if they want to see it in writing, you can put it in writing. Most people don't. And usually if you have someone who's really pushing back on you, they're probably going to end up going around you anyway, and that should be a red flag. So just be prepared, but it is important to have it in so that when someone stumbles across a for sale by owner, they're prepared to have you set up, have you be involved in that and protect everybody. Okay. You have the ability to protect a buyer's guide. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, it's just not what I expected to have in here today. Okay, let's talk a little bit about setting expectations. How do you set expectations for this market so you don't write, how many offers have you written for this buyer? Only two. Okay, so I will break your heart a little bit and tell buyers, and I think it's getting better, but this spring I was telling my buyers, most buyers, you should expect it to take 3 to 5 contracts to be under contract, right? And that should be your expectation too, unfortunately. But if we have written more than if you've written more than 3, we need to be reevaluating. And so there's a couple of things that I want to go through in the buyer presentations we're getting ready that will help you set the tone for getting it. So as you know, you've probably been watching the news lately. This is a very competitive market. The good news is it's a little softer than it was in the spring. There's a little bit more available. It's a little bit less crazy. However, if we found that dream home on Saturday when we go look and you wanted to buy it, sometimes we have to work fast. So would it be okay with you if we ran through some of the levers that we can pull to make you look like the best buyer? They will say yes. And this is a really great time for you to take a little bit of time to talk about inspection options and expectations. You guys, you can't make this stuff up. I had one the other day, and I tell you this because even when you have these conversations, I want you to know people will say they listen, but they don't. We talked through all the inspection options. We talked through them in advance, and they had decided to waive inspection, or not waive inspection, but waive inspection objection, and only have termination. We went through inspection, and they had probably $200 worth of things in the entire house. This place was immaculate. It needed a new thing on the floor so that the garage door would close properly, and some drywall patched in the garage, and there was a loose toilet. Those were the 3. That was it. And these people who had waived their right to inspection objection wanted to ask for these things anyway. So you have to remind them when you have these conversations, which is why it's important to have them now. And so I just told them, I said, do you remember when we had the conversation, is there anything on this list that you would not buy this house if they did not fix? If the answer is no, we're gonna walk away. And so you need to prepare them for loose inspections. You can talk about the different types of inspection waivers. Are we going to waive it completely except for termination? I don't recommend ever to my clients doing more than that. You want them to have the right to back out. Are you going to waive everything under $1,000 or some other amount? So if it costs less than X amount of dollars, we're not going to ask for it. Or are we going to limit it to health and safety, realizing that to a seller, it really doesn't mean anything. So they're taking you on your honor that your definition of health and safety is the same as theirs, but that's kind of the baseline for entry right now. I'm going to take this time to discuss appraisal gap coverage, what it means, what they're capable of. Now, if you have someone using down payment assistance, you can probably skip this conversation, but you might want to have a conversation of how hard it is to buy a house in this market with down payment assistance. Not impossible, but we're going to have to be really patient. We may have to wait for that property that's been overpriced and that has sat for a few days. So having realistic conversations and having the numbers to back it up, you can pull up the stats in RE Colorado and show them how many things, especially if you can pull it for if they're looking for a specific neighborhood, what are prices listing at, what are they selling for, so they can see that for themselves. I tell my buyers, it's not what a house lists for, it's what it sells for. It's not going to take you very long to go through and realize that if a house pops up and it seems better than all the others and it costs less, it doesn't matter, it's not going to sell for less, it's still going to sell for what you think it's going to sell for. And vice versa. You know, if you do see something that feels like it's a little bit overpriced, after we've looked at some and you're going to start getting a feel for that, that's a good thing for you. That actually gives you a little bit of leverage and an opportunity to maybe not have to compete. And since we talked about sellers this morning, if I have a seller who wants to overprice, do you know what I tell them? The conversation I just had with my buyer. I tell my buyers that if we see a price that's a house that's that is overpriced and sits there, that is the best news they're going to get all week. That's an opportunity for them. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you want to be that opportunity, or do you want to be the one that they're competing over? So you can kind of take those both ways. So how do you set expectations? What else? What other expectations where's your buyer getting stuck? Just losing appraisal gap, not bidding high enough?
Not bidding high enough.
Not bidding high enough. And they've lost 2 now.
She's gonna start listening to you more. I mean.
Yeah, so that
honestly.
offer that you helped me with the other day, we literally offered it at asking.
Well,
Did
did you have a conversation with the listing agent?
Yes, I did.
And
So the listing agent told me that they had no offers on the table.
sure.
And that was Sunday, and I said, okay, we'll submit an offer in the morning. If anything changes in the meantime, can you please give me a heads up? And they were, of course they said yes. Submitted the offer Monday morning, gave them until 5 that day to let us know. They ended up having offers, and it was a cash offer that they took, so that no matter what.
Sometimes you just can't win.
No matter what, we weren't gonna win that, but yeah, so we're just, I'm a frugal buyer.
And you said all she heard was there's no bids yet, so she wouldn't.
Yeah,
listen
she
to
didn't want me to
anything
tell her what
else.
the comps were. She said, well, there's no other offers, let's just do that asking. I'm like, well, do you wanna do an escalation clause? Nope. I'm like, okay.
Well, and there are some buyers who are just going to have to lose a couple.
Yeah, so I think she's getting to that point, because now she's frustrated, which is funny, because we've only submitted 2 offers, and she's frustrated. And she's only seen 6 places. So, she's on vacation for a week, so I have a week off, and so hopefully she comes back refreshed, and we'll have a little sit down with her about, having stronger offers.
Sure. Okay, I just want to make sure there's nothing else on here that we need to go through. So I'm going to go through, unless you guys have something else you'd rather talk about, I'm going to pull up a buyer's agreement and walk through, because I actually, even though I said the listing stuff, I don't necessarily do a seller's presentation. A buyer's conversation, I will go through with a buyer pretty much right off the bat, because I want that thing signed ASAP so we can go look at houses. Does that sound good, or does anyone have anything else they want to cover before I do that?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Are you doing that even before, like, let's say they haven't gone through financing yet to see what they qualify for, would you still be trying to get it signed before that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I want two things before we go shopping for houses. I want a pre-approval and I want a signed agreement. I don't care what order we do those in. Ideally, in a perfect world, they're gonna have a conversation with a lender before we have this conversation. So to me, you need to talk to a lender. We talked about a pre-listing packet. I have a pre-buyer's email that will go out to them before we go with a list of lenders. And here's the thing you need to know about lenders. You should have 3. You should always send 3, and you should have 3 that are very different from each other, both personally and professionally. So what do I mean by that? I will tell you the 3 I use. So for those who have their ducks in a row, fairly straightforward, and Keller Mortgage is great. I can almost guarantee it will save them money. But there's not gonna be a lot of hand holding. And that's what I tell them. There's a good chance this will save you money. They're probably not gonna hold your hand. And so if you want someone who's really going to make sure, be super personable, and I know that some people have found some that they like, but it's fine. But it probably be one of your cheapest options. I have Mitch. Mitch is one of the most fantastic lenders I know. He's very detailed. If you have someone who wants to know the ins and outs and the numbers, Mitch is amazing. And then my third one is a gal named Sarah. Sarah works with Universal, and Sarah is personable. Sarah takes my buyers who are on the fence and wishy-washy, or someone who needs to tell them to knock it off and get their head on straight. Sarah is my girl. Like she has taken more buyers from on the fence to actively shopping than all of my other lenders combined. She's amazing. And then I've got one more, whose name is Sean McGovern, and he's just a little more, he's a little stronger. You know Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean's a little more of a stronger personality. And so especially if I've got like ex-athletes love Sean, because he's a coach, he's been a football coach, he's a tell it like it is and just go do it. And I tell people, I said, it's important that you A, find a program that works for you, and B, find a personality that you match. You're going to be airing out all of your financial laundry to these people. If you think you have secrets, you don't. They're gonna see them. It's okay. I guarantee they've seen worse. 100% straight, I promise. Whatever you have, they've seen worse. So don't be shy, but pick someone that you're gonna be comfortable talking through these things and problem solving if something comes up. And so you think about, they're probably gonna call whoever's first on your list first. And so you might think about personalities as well as other things. And when you're putting them in order.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Whoever I think first, and first time home buyers, Sarah is awesome. But if I have someone who really wants all the numbers, who's going to be, Mitch they're all absolutely fantastic. They just have a little bit different strengths, a little different personalities, and they're all work with different companies, which I think is a win for everybody. Sometimes I also in my back pocket, I had someone at Caliber Home Loans who's been doing it a bazillion years, and Caliber carries a portfolio bigger than most do. And so sometimes they can offer a little bit of out of the box financing. For example, I had a property that was just a hair over 20 acres that we bought one time. And when you get over 20 acres, the loan requirements changed and it got really messy, and Caliber stepped in and was able to fold it because it was so close there, able to fold it into one of their portfolio loan programs. So just because one lender can't make it work, don't assume all of them can't, but you got to find the right one. And if you can have someone who needs a lot of patience, you got to find that person.
How many different lenders have you like tried to really narrow down the ones that work for you, or the ones that I don't need an exact number.
No, I don't know. I will tell you, those are my 5 that I keep on file. those are my list. And then I will just hold on to somewhere in a back file if I work with someone who's a little bit better. I will tell you, I've probably worked with 6 different Fairway mortgage lenders. I don't think I've ever had a bad experience at Fairway. They have very high standards of customer service, and they're probably not going to be the cheapest as far as fees and stuff go. But I've always had very good experiences there. So, you know, you will meet with them as your buyers will come in with them. When you're a seller, if you work with someone who's really great, you can grab onto them. You will have lenders who want to take you to lunch all the time. I will tell you, I would ask around before I just start accepting lunch dates, because the ones who are really fishing for new agents sometimes aren't. And then I look, people work with me because they like me. People work with you because they like you. And so I think one of the reasons that Sarah, even when I provide Sean, Mitch, Sarah, Keller, and I provide them all, I think one of the reasons people tend to choose Sarah is because they've already chosen me. And Sarah and I have similar styles and personalities. And so if you like me, there's a good chance you're going to like Sarah too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you should find someone that you mesh with and that you want to work with, that you like personally. And you should find someone who's very, very good at their job. And if you're a new agent, you should not be working with a new lender. Find someone who's been doing this a while, who will know the things that you don't know. You don't want to be the babysitter for a new lender. Or at least make sure that they're working with someone. I mean, for the most part, new people are working under somebody usually. But it's just something to think about. Okay. Oops, I can't spell. I think we're gonna get out of here early. Everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Mhm.
Lots to do.
Okay.
Practice on this done.
Okay. But we went through everything that was in my list, so.
She will too.
Teachers. Yeah.
All right. Exclusive right to buy listing contract. I actually will usually start with used to start with the definition of working relationships, but that's not the one we want signed anymore. So now I start with the other one. I'm not gonna pull it up. The one that talks about the definitions. And I'll just walk through so they know what they are. Customer, transaction broker, buyer agency. I've already, and so when I go through those, I just set the stage. This is how I work. It's not in my nature to do anything else. All right, so I'll just say, this is the contract that says that you're going to work with me, and these are the things that I'm going to do with you. Just so you know, I work with a multiple persons firm. There's not just me. I work in a large office, and although I'll be your primary go-to, I do have the ability, if, for example, I were to be traveling for a weekend and you had a house you wanted to see, I've got a great coaching program full of agents who can help come open a door for you. And so that's the good news, and I get the benefit of all of their expertise. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, would you check here real quick and make sure that I have spelled your name correctly and that we've got any sort of middle initial or middle name that's applicable? Sometimes when loan searches for things, it's really helpful to make sure we have your middle name in there as well. Right here says that it doesn't say yet, but it would say, we're looking for a property that meets that is acceptable to buyer in the state of Colorado. I work everywhere in the state of Colorado, but I don't work in Utah. So if you decide you're gonna wanna work somewhere else, live somewhere else, that's totally fine, just let me know. I probably can find a great referral partner for you, but this is just for Colorado that meets your needs or meets your approval. We're not leasing a property, so we're just gonna skip right over that. We're gonna check this box here that basically says, let me tell you, I try really hard to be on top of holidays, but every now and then I'll miss one. So in the event we accidentally put a date in a contract somewhere, or another agent puts a date in a contract somewhere that is on a holiday, this automatically rolls it over. We don't want to have to try to deal with amends and extends, and it just means, so we're just going to roll that over on purpose. I'm going to take a time out. Usually I will lead this with, on a scale of 1 to 10, and I'll do this when I do any contract. On a scale of 1 to 10, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, with 1 being, I don't care, tell me where to sign, and 10 being, I want to know every word in this contract, where would you say that you fall on that spectrum?
I was just gonna ask you, what means if you got a buyer that said, I don't care, let me just sign it?
So if you have, there's, and I will tell you a couple of things that I will do. Even if they're a 1, just tell me where to sign. There are a couple of things that I will always show them anyway. I will always ask them to double check their names. Listing period. I will always touch on the listing period. This contract is good through, my personal for a buyer is 6 months. My sincere hope is that we're in a property before then. But the market is a little bit challenging right now. We want to make sure that this goes through all the way to close and we don't have to extend. And you know, if you've got someone who's going to be particularly challenging or is just casual, you might want to do longer, but I would encourage you to do at least 6 months. I'm not going to bother with the computation of days of someone who tells me where it says, tell me where to sign. I'll touch on this box with, if they say anything anywhere between a 3 and an 8, my presentation is almost the same. If they're a 10, okay, I'm gonna hit the highlights and then I'm gonna email it to you unless you read through. If you have any questions, let me know. Buyer, I'm gonna leave this box unchecked because in the event that I have a seller who is selling exactly what you want, I want to be able to represent both of you. That can make a win-win for everyone. Or if I've got some, you know, my best friend's mom or my mom, I'm going to tell them that I'm checking this box because there's really no world in which I'm going to feel comfortable doing, and I'll refer one of you out. But either way, I'm going to touch on that box so that they know whether or not that's a possibility. And if I have something that I think is coming up, I might mention it. If I think it's highly unlikely, I'll tell them that too. These are the brokerage duties. I'm gonna let you read through them. These are the things that you can expect from me. This is the baseline of required things things that I have to do for you. If you have any questions, let me know. Whoops, this is not my computer, obviously. Okay, how do I get paid? Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, I do not charge an hourly fee. I do not charge a retaining fee. You do not pay me unless we close on a house. In exchange, this is my expectation of when that happens. You don't pay me straight out of your pocket. It will come out of the seller's proceeds. You don't need to worry about it. The only time that would be different would be if you find someone who's absolutely not willing to pay me. And we will discuss that before we see a house, if anything like that changes. We're not doing a lease. I'm going to check this box right here. It says that the seller may pay, and 99% of the time that's what happens. But it says that you are obligated to pay. If I've got someone who's a first-time home buyer and is using down payment assistance, I'm going to tell them right there, I know I've checked this box. I would never dream of asking you to write me a check. However, in the event that we were to find a for sale by owner that you fall in love with, if checking this box is the only way that I have to negotiate for myself to make sure that I do get paid. If I have someone who does have cash, especially if it's a higher end property, I will tell you, we might have a conversation of sometimes we see that they're offering less, or you can use it as a negotiating strategy. If you want to pay me instead of asking them to pay me, there are a variety of things. But the biggest key I will hit on is in the event we should find a for sale by owner. I need to be able to negotiate to make sure that I get paid in the process. And they're all like, oh, they understand. People are great about it. I always write 2.8%. You will come up with, you know, we're all in the same brokerage, we established that. I write 2.8, that's my expectation as a buyer's agent, that's what I'm going to get paid. I will tell you personally, as long as it's 2.5, I'm probably gonna keep my mouth shut, and I tell them as much. The one time, and we'll have a conversation about that, is if I have a seller and then buyer, I will usually offer a rebate on the buy side, right? So I'm gonna reward you for using me for both transactions. If they're not offering 2.8%, I'm not also giving you a rebate. So, but buyers, these conversations with buyers are usually very easy because they're not personally writing the check. Okay. So, but I do want them to know a couple of things, and people who read contracts at all, they're gonna wanna know why you checked that box because they've been told they don't have to pay you. So you might just touch on it. In the event we find something and this listing expires, there's a holdover period of about 30 days or whatever you end up putting, whatever you put in the box. And even if they tell me one, I don't care, just tell me where to sign. We're gonna stop on number 9 and I'm gonna ask them the question. This paragraph says that you are not working with another agent and have not signed paperwork with another agent. Is that true? I don't care how many conversations we've had. I don't care how many, whatever. I want you to know that we're checking those boxes, and that from now on, and if you see these papers from somewhere else, you're gonna remember because because you can't say that now because now you've filled this out. So even if they're 1, I'm gonna hit on 9. These are your rights to cancel. And what I will tell them is really at the end of the day, if you want to fire me, I haven't been fired yet, but if you want to fire me, I absolutely understand. I'm not going to be the best fit for every person out there. I know that. I do ask that you tell me so that we can end this contract. So that just sets that. So, okay. Following additional tasks, you can, whatever you end up putting there is fine, but typically there's not too much to add. But I do put right here always, broker's limitations on accessing properties are as followed. This is your opportunity to set your own boundaries. And you will not get another better opportunity later on. Do you show properties on Sunday morning or do you go to church? Is there a time that you absolutely are unavailable? Do you require 24 hours notice? I believe that one day I will have a business and I will say that I do not work on Sundays. I do not have a business that warrants me saying that quite yet. And so what I write in there always is with 24 hours notice. With 24 hours notice, I can figure it out. If I absolutely can't be there with 24 hours notice, I can find someone who can go show a property. And I tell them, I said, I understand that this is a fast moving market. And I think we need to get in to see something ASAP, I will make every reasonable attempt to do so. But in general, if you can give me 24 hours notice before, that's really helpful. I do have kids, I'm married, I've got a life, I've got whatever. I have other clients. Does that make sense? But you get to decide it, but you should put it here so that they know and they've signed that you do have some limitations. I have access to RE Colorado, and that actually includes another one up north. Okay, I will just click on, yeah. I have your permission to disclose your identity. It's really hard to keep that a secret unless you're really, really famous. There really is no reason to. It's almost impossible, but just wanted you to know. And you're welcome to read through the rest of it. And that's really about it. And so if you have someone who is I'm going to say a 7 to a 10, they're probably going to want an opportunity to read the contract, and you just tell them if you have any questions, let me know. If you have someone who is a 4 or lower, that's going to be more than sufficient for them to just say okay and sign. And everyone else just say, if you're comfortable, you can go ahead and sign now. If not, I can email it to you. If you have any questions, let me know. Was that helpful at all?
Yeah.
So helpful. So you do this with the computer in your buyer consultation?
I actually mostly will do this on, if I can, I'll do it on Zoom. I love doing that, and I do a similar thing with my seller, with my listing contracts. And I will sometimes even, if I have a really serious buyer who I know is gonna have to jump really fast, you can go through a mock version of this with the contract to buy and sell. So if it's their first offer, I'll do a very similar thing with the contract to buy and sell. Hitting the highlights, don't bore them with dates. They literally in one ear and out the other.
He's like the queen.
Yep. But there are a lot, but I'll run through it, and that's a great time to talk about inspection. What are we willing to do on inspection? Appraisal gap coverage, that's the thing, but give them, so that way you can put it together really fast. So sometimes in my buyer consultation, I will go through that, especially if I know that they're gonna be offering on the first house that they see that meets their needs because they're in a hurry. But you can do it on Zoom, you can do it in person on the computer. There's no wrong answer, but. What else? What are your hangups on buyers? Anything? Besides, they don't listen and they suck the life out of
They'll
you.
get there. They'll get there.
Remind me what price point you were shopping at?
Well, she's approved for 425.
Yeah, stop. You were down lower than that, though, weren't you?
355, that's why we had so much room.
She must not have wanted it that badly.
She did, she just frugal, that's the sad part. And then with singles, she doesn't wanna get up to, I mean, nobody wants to
No.
get up to their.
To their limit.
No, nobody does, but the fact that we found that place at 355.
So
She
here's.
should have, yeah.
So here's sometimes what I'll say. I have a question, especially when you're talking, it's like, if you just needed to go $5,000.
Right.
Can I ask you a question? If you got up tomorrow morning and found out that you lost this house because someone bought it for $357, how are you gonna feel about that?
Yeah. So the first offer, I asked her that question and I don't know what her response was. It was something along the lines, well, it just wasn't the one.
Okay.
'Cause that's usually what I say when we, lose. I'm like, oh, it's not the one. Right,
Yeah.
will come along.
Well, and there will be one that will come along that they'll be heartbroken over.
Right.
Yes.
And then they'll be,
Uh-huh.
My buyers have been similar in that they're very specific about what they will pay. And they have no qualms, like if they know that they're at their highest point and they lose the property, they have not cared because they know that they won't pay more than that. But they haven't put me in a position, and I would just check the next time Megan does that, the next time she asks you to write at asking, and the signals you're getting from the listing agent is no, I would be tempted to just have a really firm talk to say, you know what, this really isn't even worth our time to submit.
And I actually have said that she sent me a place that was literally listed for 414. And I told her she wanted me to submit now for 420, and I said, listen. I looked at the comps, and actually the cheapest comp I could find was 475. I said, this house is gonna go for above 475. I said, I think we should just pass on this one. I said, however, you're the boss, if you want me to do it, let's do it. Thank God she was like, no, let's not waste our time. I'm like, okay, thank God.
Yeah. That sounds like you know what you're doing.
So so I did say that because she sent me two. One was 410, one was 414, and she wanted the 414 one. She's like, let's go to 420. I'm like, no. And both of those houses were in the same area, and they both the comps were 475, 485.
well, and what I will tell what I have been telling my buyers this year, and I think it's softening, but it's a script that can at least get them into the right mindset, is what we're seeing is if a house is listed for what we would expect it to appraise for, which means that it is listed according to the current comps, we can expect it to go for around 10% over that price. So, which tells them that number one, it won't automatically go 10% over. And it may go 20% over if it's listed 10% over, but if it's listed about where we think it would appraise for, if it is listed according to the comps in the area, we can expect it to go 10% over, which means $5,000 is probably not gonna cut it on a $400,000 house. But if it's already listed a little bit over, if it's already overpriced, then that's probably well, and if it's underpriced, then we can expect it to go well over 10%. So you'll start figuring it out, and I tell my buyers, just like you did, if it looks too good to be true,
It is, yeah.
it probably is, and just because it's listed there doesn't mean it's gonna sell there. It doesn't matter what they listed at, it matters what it sells for.
Yeah, and so, and that
She'll get
house,
there.
I really couldn't even find it at 355 when we put an offer on. There wasn't really any good comps because the one that sold for, it was 300 square feet more, it sold for 365 in June, it closed at 365, so $10,000 more, and it wasn't even that much bigger, and so, yeah, I didn't even, so I mean, the offer, I didn't wanna go that much above the 355, but I didn't wanna offer that asking. So it'll just get to a point where she's, fed up and wants to be more aggressive.
Well, and sometimes I'll tell listing agents when I put it in, especially if they don't wanna do escalation clauses, but they really want it, because I've got a huge fan of, look, I can't promise anything, but they really want this house. If it looks like we're getting beat out by a little bit, would you please give me the opportunity to at least try to get creative and see if we can't put a little bit more together for you? And because that will hopefully give them the hope that you'll get a little bit higher. It gives them the idea that you're not like just willing to just throw a bazillion dollars at it. And I've had a lot of success with that with listing agents, as long as you follow up. And they'll tell you, and sometimes they don't listen. I mean, I will tell you, I had one client in the house that got away, like straight up. I worked this agent for 2 days, and we were literally losing by like $6,500. And my clients dug their heels in, like they had spelled out what we needed to do, and it was that close, and they walked, and then they spent weeks regretting it. And I will tell you, it did not happen again.
Yeah.
The next time they went in, they found a house they loved, they meant business, and
So I think that's what it's gonna come down to. Is
Yeah.
She's gonna be fed up losing, and she's gonna, so we'll see. She's going on vacation tomorrow for a week, so I'm hoping she comes back refreshed, ready to hit the ground running.
yeah.
More aggressive.
Yep. All right. Well, it is 1 o'clock. I think we're supposed to go till 1:30, but we did script practice and we went through all the things. So unless you want to make your buyer's presentation, I think we could probably, or anyone has any questions or things they want to discuss.
You covered it, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope it wasn't too boring.
It's always good to refresh and go over and hear other people's approach, so thank you for sharing that.